Hi everybody, Karaoke here. In this video, I want to share some tips for having fun in Guild Wars 2. Now that might sound like kind of a strange thing, because it's a game, we should all be having fun, right? But what I find is that a lot of new players are either confused about what to do, or maybe they've played another MMO. WoW specifically seems to create certain patterns and ideas in people's head, and then they bring those into Guild Wars 2 and maybe don't have as much fun as they feel like they should be having. So if you picked up the game and you're like, hey, everybody else seems to be having a better time than me, what am I doing wrong? Well, this video is for you. One of the main problems people have coming into Guild Wars 2 is that it's very easy to compare the Guild Wars 2 professions to classes that exist in other games like WoW. So for example, you could say, oh, Rangers in Guild Wars 2, those are kind of like Hunters, and Thieves are kind of like Rogues, and Guardians are kind of like Paladins. And while that's true at some level, because Guild Wars 2 is not a Trinity-based game, these characters often play very differently than they might play in another game. So instead of having these roles of tanking and healing and DPS like you'd see in a game like WoW, all characters should be providing all parts of a soft trinity in Guild Wars 2, and that is DPS, control, and support. And unlike other games where you specialize into one of these roles, in Guild Wars every character should be expected to play all three roles. So you should be bringing damage, and you should be bringing support, and you should be bringing control options. Now, not every profession is as good as those things as others. So, for example, Thief and Elementalist are the best at dealing DPS, but you can never really ignore all of those options that are out there. Good parties and good teams are made up of a combination of those roles, with every player within providing some little bit of that. So it can take a while to forget some of the lessons we've learned in other games, and really start to understand how the Guild Wars 2 soft trinity of damage control and support works. There's a gameplay loop that exists in other MMOs. Get a quest, do the quest, which hopefully sends you on some sort of epic adventure out in the world, and then return the quest and get a reward. Now, that doesn't exist in Guild Wars 2. There is no questing system, but a lot of people try to pretend that renown hearts are like quests. But they are not. Hearts are not quests. The problem with hearts in Guild Wars 2 is that they're anchored to a particular location in the map. So if your gameplay loop becomes go to a heart, do the heart, go to the next heart, you're not really exploring the world very much. It just feels like you're running from point A to point B and doing little menial tasks in the meantime. My suggestion for your gameplay loop in Guild Wars 2 instead would be to ignore the hearts on your map and just run around and explore. Keep an eye on your level, make sure you're not too far out leveled from where you are, but run around, check out POIs that are on your map, go get vistas, make sure you get all the waypoints. And if you're starting to find that you are not high enough level for the area, return back, go back to a different starting area. There are 5 level 1 to 15 zones you can check out. There are 4 15 to 25 zones. And if you explore all of these on a character, you'll find you level very quickly, compared to trying to stay within a single map and complete everything as you go, which can feel really static, boring, and grindy. So just remember, hearts are not quests. Don't let them drive your gameplay experience. If you really do want something to think of as a quest, think about dynamic events in Guild Wars 2 as being quests. Dynamic events will often move you through different areas, and they tend to have much more engaging experiences than what you would get out of a Renown Heart. I started to enjoy this game a lot more once I stopped paying attention to hearts and just explored the world to see what was going on. Unlike other games, Guild Wars 2 does not have an obvious gear treadmill. There's not an obvious next thing you need to do to progress in the game. The problem with this is that people oftentimes think either there's nothing to do, and I've had so many real-life friends quit the game because they think there's nothing to do, or the goals that you might have seem so far off that you'll never get there. I see a lot of people look at what it takes to get a legendary weapon and just decide they'll never get one and quit the game. The trick in Guild Wars 2 to being able to play the game and enjoy it and not feel like you're having to grind to get gold all the time is to have a mixture of goals. So I like to have a short-term, medium-term, and long-term goal. My short-term goal might be something that I'm going to do this week. I might have a medium-term goal that I'm going to try and do this month, and I might have a long-term goal that might take 6 to 12 months. And as I complete each one of those goals, I'll swap a different one in. So, for example, a short-term goal might be I need to get traits for my warrior. There's this phalanx strength build that I've heard about, and it requires some traits I don't have, and so I want to go get those traits, and that's something I can do this week. Medium-term goal might be, hey, I want to get one of my crafting disciplines up to 400 or 500, and that's going to take me about a month. And a long-term goal might be something like getting a legendary, or getting up to a really high fractal level, or getting to a certain rank in SPVP that you know is going to take a long time. Along with these multiple goals, I also suggest having them be in multiple different areas of the game. Because if it's just, hey, I need a bunch of gold and I have all these things, you're still just going to be grinding gold. But rather, if your goals are to do a diverse set of things, then if you come into the game and say, hey, I don't feel like grinding for gold today, I'm going to work on this other goal that doesn't require me to do so. And it keeps the game feeling a lot fresher and newer, and you don't feel like it's as much of a grind. Guild Wars 2 is a lot more fun when you get to experience all of it. In other games, you might be a little bit more limited in your ability to go and play multiple classes. If there's a bit more of a gear grind, it can be hard to have a lot of alts, but Guild Wars 2 has a lot less grinding just to get stats, so it's much easier to play all the different professions in all of the different game modes. And what I really suggest is that you try mixing and matching them. So, for example, you might have a warrior and try to do dungeons with it and find it really boring, but you go and do those same dungeons with an engineer and it's really exciting. That doesn't mean your warrior's useless. Take it into World versus World and see if you like it there. And there's so many combinations of the different professions and different game modes you can play and different builds that you use. There's a lot of experimenting that goes on to find the ones that fit. So I started off on Mesmer and found that I didn't really like it in World versus World or PvP. And it wasn't that I didn't like World versus World or PvP, it was just that on Mesmer I didn't get the experience I wanted. So as I started doing Necro in World versus World, I found I really enjoyed it. And then in PvP, I found that I really enjoyed playing Warrior. So you really want to try out all the different types of modes and all of the different professions to see what you enjoy the most, and it keeps the game from feeling as stale and monotonous. Guild Wars 2 caters to people of various play styles. Whether you have a few hours a week to play or 8 to 10 hours a day, the game has enough to do to keep you busy and engaged for a while, especially for the $60 price tag or less if you get it on sale. But there is one type of player that has a really, really hard time in Guild Wars 2, and I'd like to give a warning to those people, and that is the Completionists. So what I mean by that is if you're the type of person you want to start something and keep doing it until you finish it and then move on to the next thing, Guild Wars 2 can be a horrifically grindy game. And that's because a lot of the things that you can do in this game are meant to be really, really long-term goals. Whether it's doing map completion or completing collections or getting a legendary weapon or building ascended weapons and armor, this game really isn't designed for you to start on one thing and just do it until you're done. If you come from other games, you might be familiar with that with like raiding and gear treadmills, but Guild Wars 2, it doesn't have the systems in place to manage that progress. So it just feels like an endlessly grindy, hopeless task to do some of these things. Again, I refer you back to my previous suggestion to have different short, medium, and long-term goals to help with this, but in general, if you're the type of person that likes to just 100% something and then move on, this game can feel really terrible for you, and that's either a habit that you can break or deal with, or you'll just burn out and quit the game. But for those players, for people who are completionists, an extra special warning for you, you have to take very, very special care not to find yourself in a hopeless, grindy loop. So in summary, guys, Guild Wars 2 is a fun game. There's a ton to do. You can play different classes, and there's a lot of different game modes that have different mechanics and really keep things fresh. You just have to be careful not to take too much experience from other games and try to bring it into Guild Wars 2. It's a different game with its own sense of exploration and fun and adventure from other things that you've seen. And as long as you're willing to be a little bit open to new experiences and new ways of doing things, I think it can be a really, really fun game, and you can get thousands and thousands of hours of fun out of it. I know for my part, I have about 3,000 hours in game, and I still haven't accomplished everything that I want to do. So I hope you guys love the game as much as I do. If you have other tips for people about things they might be able to do to enjoy the game more, leave them down in the comments below. If you have any questions or feedback, do that as well.
Ooh, thank you.
And hopefully I'll see you guys in game. Shoot me a message, and maybe we'll get a chance to play together sometime. Everybody take care.